Welcome to The Purpose Effect, the space where we get honest, we get intentional, and we get aligned with the life God designed for us. I'm Alesha, your host for Mondays, and I have my dear friend David that hosts on Wednesdays, and on Fridays we do it together. And our mission is simple: to help you stop floating through life and start living with purpose, clarity, and action. Now, today is again going to be a little different. I actually am going to be posting week 2 of a training that I've been doing with my team. And this one is going to be powerful. It is on the identity drift and how oftentimes we just drift through life instead of living with intention. And so I hope you enjoy this episode of The Purpose Effect and the Identity Drift. Okay, good morning, you guys.
Good morning.
For you.
So excited. Good morning. Oh, I'm so excited to be here, you guys. Gosh, I tell you, God has just been sharing so much with me and just downloading things. And sometimes it gets a little overwhelming, but I am just soaking it up. And I'm just grateful that I get to be here with you and get to be intentional with you and really help you to experience some massive shifts just God has been doing in my life. And just as he shares stuff with me, I just know that it will impact you. Let's go over a little bit of what we went through last week, because we are in a 3-part series. And so this is our second week. Last week, we looked at the emotional avoidance. We looked at our emotions and how we oftentimes will avoid them, or sometimes because of that avoidance, we will get explosive and our emotions can take over, and just being intentional with it, how to walk through it. And here's the big thing, you guys, what I want us to accomplish in these next 3 weeks is a massive growth shift. We're really taking things that we maybe think, oh, that's not that big of a deal. These are such small little things. But these small little things are what make massive changes in our life, either good or bad, positive or negative. And so when we create this level of awareness, of just being aware of what our thoughts, how our thoughts are influencing us, how our emotions can sometimes run the roost instead of us thinking things through, and all that, how it can really make a difference in how we live our lives, how we walk out our purpose, how we learn to live with intention. Like, all of this builds on each other. And so sometimes breaking it down to these basic, I almost want to say like core level thoughts or ideas of how do we do this, how do we shift it, can really help you gain massive momentum, massive. And so today we want to focus on the identity drift. Now, when I think of an identity drift, this particular week really hits home to me in such a powerful way, because this is exactly where I was for a very long time. And I would also say there's still that natural tendency to go back into that if I'm not intentional. We never actually grow out of this and you're like, I've mastered it, now I'm good to go, no problems there. No, we have to, what we're doing is, as we create a level of awareness in our lives, it's recognizing that awareness always needs to be present, that we always need to be reviewing. We always need to be thinking things through, being intentional, digging deeper. Part of that too is having people in our lives that can help pour into us, right? Having those people that can help hold us accountable and help really challenge us or whatever. Because sometimes we maybe do lose track or we don't notice it. And so keep that in mind. And we'll go over more of that even next week too. So next week is comfortable mediocrity. And I don't know how many of you guys sometimes are like, I just want to be comfortable and hang out here. But we need to push through that, because it is just powerful what God has. Your purpose, let me just say this, your purpose and your calling in life will never be comfortable. Let me just have that scene. Your purpose in life will never be comfortable. If you just let that sink in for a second, because your purpose is so big, it's so massive, and it's one that requires that God gets the glory, right? And so if we're in it and we're comfortable and we're like, oh no, I'm walking out my purpose, I'm good, this is a great spot to be, maybe you're not really walking out your full purpose. Because in that you have to truly be able to give God all, you have to trust him wholly in it. And that's something that God has been showing me over and over again. Alesha, I'm going to put you in situations that you have to trust me, not everything else going on around you. Oh, it's so hard. It's so painful. But I don't want to be anywhere else but in that spot. So let me ask you this question. Have you ever woken up and realized you don't feel like yourself anymore? Have you woken up and went, oh, how did I get here? How did how did life unfold this way? And that's where I was almost 3 years ago, where I went, wait, what? I've just been floating through life. Oh my goodness. Like, how did I get to this point? And I will challenge all of you that I think more of you are there than you realize. I think most of us end up in that spot. Most of us end up just going, what am I here? What am I doing? Who am I? And so, in order to shift that, we have to begin to take time to look at things and go, wait a second, I got to become aware of things. And so that's really been my goal and purpose over these last 3 years is how do I live that? How do I live out a life of intention and not just drifting or floating? I like to always refer to it as floating. And in the process, what I've been doing is I'm passing it on to you guys, right? I've been sharing with you what I'm learning that I'm hoping and praying that then you go and you share it with others. Because the more momentum that we can create from this of helping people to understand that they were meant for so much more, that they were meant for more than just floating or drifting through life, that's where the real purpose comes in. That's where things begin to shift. That's where it gets exciting. It gets really in a scary way sometimes. It's like a roller coaster. And sometimes roller coasters, and I have found the older I get, sometimes they're a little more nauseous. I don't really like roller coasters anymore. I used to love, you know what? My favorite ride, especially at Carnival. So I live in this rural South Dakota area. We don't have big amusement parks and stuff. We have to go 6 hours to Denver. And we've been to a lot of different places and gone to a lot of them, but we would always have a fun little carnival that would come to our area over the 4th of July. And my favorite ride was the zipper. Now, I don't know if you guys know the zipper, but it is one that it rotates up and around. So this whole piece, then it's a long, long, narrow oval, and it rotates around and around. Now, as it's rotating, there's these small little like capsule or little things that you're in it, right? And so there's maybe two or three people that are in it, and those things spin as well. And then the whole thing's rotating and it's all spinning. I used to love the zipper. It was my favorite thing. And the more I could spin it, oh, it was awesome. Now there's no way I would get on it. No way I would get on it. It would freak me out and I would get sick to my stomach and I would get nauseous. But here's my point in sharing that with you guys is as we get older, I think we naturally tend to go with, I don't want to get uncomfortable. I don't want to put myself in those situations. I don't want to get sick, which there's a valid point to that. We don't want to be throwing up. But sometimes we avoid any of those things because we don't want to grow, because we get, oh, nope, I don't want to be uncomfortable. And I think even as we're younger, and this is totally off track, but when we're younger, I think we see things differently and life jades us. You guys ever feel that way? That as time goes on, you just get to, how did I get here? How did I get so numb? How did this happen? And if I look at when I was a teen and I loved the zipper, and now I don't, maybe it's because over that time, things occurred, things happened, and we allowed ourselves to get jaded. We allowed ourselves to get numb, which goes back to, again, even last week, talking about emotional awareness. But now we have to push into it again. And we have to begin to realize that we can't live in that space anymore. Now, there's wisdom that comes in it. Like now, really wouldn't probably ride on a zipper because by golly, I don't know how safe that thing is anymore. I don't want to die. So I'm not going to do it. I have some wisdom in it. So now I'm going to apply the wisdom, but I know I still need some growth. If after you've asked that question, and I want you guys to really do some self-reflection today, and I hope it can even spur some more self-reflection into the weekend and just being intentional with it of why don't you know have you do you feel like yourself anymore? Who are you? It's not because you changed intentionally, but because you slowly drifted and started floating. This doesn't happen right away with the drift. Have you ever been on a boat and maybe you have the anchor down or sometimes I'll go out on a boat and we don't necessarily put the anchor. We're just floating and we're just hanging and we're just visiting, having fun. And all of a sudden we're like, whoa, how did we get so close to the shore? Because we were just hanging out. We weren't being intentional. We were just chilling. So we're now we need to be aware of that. We're not going to be drifting anymore. Identity drift is when your behaviors, environment, or emotions begin to shape who you are. Now listen to this part more than your values, your calling, or your convictions. You have allowed everything else in your life, your environment, behaviors, and emotions to control you instead of living with intention, knowing what your values are, your callings, and your convictions. It's subtle, it's quiet, and it's rarely dramatic. No one wakes up and says, I think I'll abandon who I am becoming today. It happens in inches. And I will also say, as we get into this today, that's the beauty of what I'm encouraging you guys to shift in now as well is we get to start in slow inches heading the other way. Because what I want you guys to create is a lifestyle shift. And we talk about this even with our products and like health and all that kind of stuff. If you just think, oh, you just need to go in and throw away all of your yucky food in your house and get rid of everything and just jump for it, most of the time, nobody stays in that because it's too overwhelming. It's too massive of a jump. And it's just, oh my goodness. And they give up. So that's why I want you guys to begin to be, let's take those small steps. Now, there will be times where you're going to take the big leap and you're going to make some big jumps. But in the process, it's not the big jumps that are creating the massive shift of having you go from floating to living with intention. It's those small daily things that you need to be incorporating in your life to really create the long lasting permanent shift. So how does floating happen? I want to get back to the core of that just a little bit so we have some understanding. How does this occur? How do we go from the teens of living life and whoa, yay, to all of a sudden we wake up and we're in our 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s and 70s go, oh my goodness, how did I get here? How did I get here? It can happen in a lot of different ways. One of the ways, and this would definitely be one that for me, it occurred because I just was tired of getting hurt. I quit living with intention. I quit knowing my identity because of disappointment. I lived with the idea for a very long time that I didn't want to dream big because I didn't want to get disappointed. I didn't want to fail. I didn't want my dreams to be so big and then all of a sudden just dashed and it hurt. And so you know what? I'm just not going to dream big. I'm not going to walk out my purpose because I do not want to be disappointed again. How many of you guys have walked through that? That it's easier to stay comfortable than face that disappointment. I will tell you, Satan loves for you to be there. And he really wants you to stay there because that's where God has so many big dreams and purposes and plans for you. But if you will not even allow yourself to go there, If you will not even allow yourself to dream those dreams and to begin to speak them out, the chances of them happening on their own without you taking action, it's not going to happen. If you're not willing to shift and dream big and start putting it into action today, you might be at the exact same spot a year from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now. Part of walking out a life of intention, and this is honestly, this is the one that was the hardest for me, is to dream big. It really was, because I felt like I had been disappointed and hurt so many times that I would have these big dreams and nothing would happen. And so I had this really skewed perspective of it. And so I had to learn to, so I just shut it off. You prayed for something and it didn't happen. So you slowly stopped believing you're called. You shrink from your vision and you lower your expectations. And guess what? Satan has you where he wants. He has exactly where he wants you. Because now you are just floating. Because it's safer. So instead of saying, I am called, now you begin to say, you know what? It wasn't meant to be. That was just silly. That was such a stupid idea. Oh my goodness. I can't even believe I even thought that. I'll never change. So, what you've done now is you've allowed that disappointment and that hurt to define you. You've allowed that to become a part of your identity instead of knowing that God has still called you. And it doesn't always play out how you planned. Like today at 10 o'clock, my time, I get to go and sign off on the closing of my old house. It has been a 10-month journey and it's been a long 10 months. It did not happen the way I had planned it. Now, here's the thing. Normally, in years past, what would have happened is I would have sat in the idea of, you know what? I failed. I did something wrong. It did not play out how I wanted. Okay, God, what did I do wrong? What did I do wrong? Or I would have said, gosh, see, that's the point of dreaming big. See the pain and the hurt that comes from dreaming big. And I would have tried to just shut myself off from it. But instead, as I'm learning to, part of dreaming big, especially when we are walking out our relationship with the Lord and really shifting what our dreams are to what his dreams are, and to realign where what our goals are to match with what his are. Because I will tell you, and it says this over and over in scripture, his ways are higher than our ways, his ways are way better than our ways. His ways, that's where the real amazing growth occurs, is when we line up what we want, what our dreams are with what his are. And so what I've been able to do over these last 10 months is I've been able to rest in the peace of saying, God, I know that this is not playing out how I had planned. But man, I'm excited to see what you have in store. I think of Job often, and I think of what he went through in the Bible in the Old Testament and how he had everything. He had an amazing family. He had wealth in abundance. He had all of it. And then he lost it all. But you know what God did in that? Is he then went back and he multiplied it. He actually gave him more than what he had before. But in order to do that, he had to realign his identity and say, God, I give it to you. So when you begin to dream again, when you begin to live with intentionality and you begin to dig into your identity, please know that the real strength comes from when you put that identity in, and that you are a child of God first, that you are his masterpiece. And when we frame that identity on that core principle, that core foundational piece, it changes everything. Because I know that I trust God in it. God, I have no idea why you waited 10 months to sell my house. I have no idea, but man, I trust you. See the difference in that? Instead, I could have been like, God, why did you fail me? Why did you put this dream in my head and then it didn't play out the way it was supposed to? You failed me. I'm done. I give up. I'm moving on. How many times do we do that? Instead, I'm going, God, you're good. In fact, this morning, I know Jan's on here. The reason why I left the gym early is because I wanted to walk through my house one last time and to just pray over it and to just bless the people that are moving in there and to just thank God for what he's done. It was not my plan how it played out, but it's so much better. And what's really cool is it's still unfolding. Like, I don't know exactly how much better it's going to be. He has not shown that part yet, but I know it's going to be better. And what a great spot to be in, you guys, to have that peace. So we can, part of drifting can happen with disappointment, right? And I know a lot of us have been there. A lot of us, it's been disappointing. So, what about we begin drifting through comparison? You were confident until you saw someone else doing it better. You had it all figured out, and then you watch the person that started the same time you did. And we can talk about either Toronto or just in life in general, right? And you look over and you're like, wait, whoa, how? And then all of a sudden they are sprinting off and they are 100 feet ahead of you, and you're still back here. And instead of just focusing on the path that God has given you, you have now compared to that path. And now you're just discouraged. And now you say, you know what? It's easier to just sit back. I give up. I don't want to. I'm just, again, tie it into the disappointment, but then also tie it into they're succeeding and I'm not. God, why did you give them that gift and not me? God, why did you bless? I'll tell you, God has shown me I have a lot of gifts and talents. And I don't say that to brag. I just know that I'm standing firm in the person that God created me to be. And I know that He's given me gifts and talents, just like He's given each one of us. But I'll also tell you, there's a few things He forgot to give me. And there's one of them is I am not athletically gifted at all. At all. And I've tried. I have really tried. And maybe I need to switch my how I say that. Like maybe I need to be more positive, but I'm really not. Like I've tried. Like I've actually gone and I played pickleball for a year, like 2 times a week, and I never got a single ounce better. It's bad. And you know what? That's okay. I cannot sing for the life of me. Like Lisa Ann, the fact that you have that gift is, oh, it's so, I can't sing. Like even to my own ears, when I'm singing, I'm like, ooh, that was bad. That was bad. Oh gosh. But you know what? It's okay. Because I'm not focused on what everybody else's gifts are. I'm focusing on my lane and what the gifts that God has given me. And I'm not comparing myself anymore to where other people are, but I'm saying, God, what have you given me and how can I work it out? How can I live with what you, and Satan wants to he wants to get our eyes off of that and start comparing with everybody else. And then in that, instead of keeping our goal in front of us, we begin to drift and get our eyes all around everybody else and what everybody else is doing and what we do or we don't have. And then it takes us away from our purpose. How many of you guys have ever had that? So, in that, here's how this ties into Trinot. You might not want to make a post because you don't feel you're worthy enough to post about something. You might question, what do you bring to the table? And this is actually one of the things I talk to a lot about my team, with my team and other people, is I don't have anything special. Who says you don't have anything special? You, because you're comparing it with somebody else. I talked it last night. I was with being on our local school board. I'm part of a couple different organizations that I get to help out on, and it's so cool. And so last night we had a fundraising event. And if any of you guys have met me in person, I am loud and vibrant, and I'm learning to embrace that way more. It's just who I am, and it's a gift, though sometimes it can come with some downfalls. But at this fundraising event last night, I had to step up and do a few things and gather the audience, and it was fun, and it comes really naturally for me. And I was talking to one of the other gals, and she's the chair of this event that we did, and she is one of the sweetest, most tender, humble, gentle people I know. Like she is just so sweet. And it was interesting because we were talking and we were laughing about how loud and vibrant I am. And she said, "Gosh, I sometimes wish I could be like that." And it was just interesting to me because I look at her and I highly respect this gal, so highly respect her. And even in that, we tend to compare, right? And what happens is instead of her just seeing the amazing gifts that she has, oh, I wish I could be like that. So, my point in sharing that story, you guys, is you each have amazing gifts. God did not make a mistake when He made you. He did not make a mistake when He made you. You are a masterpiece, right? And so when you begin to question and you begin to compare yourself with others, the problem ends up being that you begin to say to God, "You didn't make me correctly. You didn't do it. I should have been more like that." And God's like, "No, I made you who you are. Now walk in it." And when you begin to walk in it, things begin to shift. Now, I have learned that there are still times that I have to not be as vibrant. And that's okay. There are certain situations that God's teaching and growing me in that I'm learning how to walk out. That, yes, there's some blind spots that come with some of our gifts and our personality traits, right? God's working at that. And it's awesome. I love it. I say, God, keep working on me. But know that stop the comparing and focus on the gifts that God has given you. You are not behind, you are uniquely called for who you are. And if you keep trying to fulfill your purpose, thinking that you need to be somebody else, it's not going to happen. Okay, so here's another way that we end up drifting: survival mode. Anybody have that? Survival mode. Holy buckets. I have lived in survival mode for many years. Oftentimes we do that if we can do it when we become parents. I think especially when it really was at my height was when I had all these toddlers running around. My husband was deployed for a big chunk of that, and I just needed to get through the day. How many of us do that? I just need to get through today. I just need to get through this week. I just need to get through this. I just need to do this. And we just are barely, it's not with living with intention, but it's just in that moment, right? Now, here's what I'll tell you. I do believe that there are times it's okay to be in that for a little bit. There are times that you're going to have to be, if something happens that's really tragic, if you go through something, it's okay to be in that. Here's the thing: how long are you staying in it? If you stay in it, now what happened, and I'll tell you, I was in survival mode for probably about 10 years. That's too long. That's way too long. And I know some of you guys have been in survival mode for a very long time. That is not where you are meant to be. If you keep that going and you just keep going, I'm just coping, and you stop the growing, things are not going to shift. Survival, you don't just, it doesn't go from one day living in survival mode to the next day you are in massive, huge growth and everything's amazing. And all of a sudden your income tripled and you are living in your dream home and you have your dream family and all that. It doesn't happen. You have to take the steps. You have to be intentional. You have to go from drifting to living with intention. Identity shifts from I am disciplined and intentional. So this is where you begin to see it, to I'm just trying to make it. How many of you guys have done that? I've said that many times too. I just need to get through the day. I just need to make it through the day. And what's interesting is I had that thought process for so long, and now I'm out of it, but I will still catch myself saying some of those silly things. Oh, I just need to make it through the day. No, no, no. I want to be present throughout the day, even in the hard, even in the really hard moments. I want to be present. I want to walk through things being present and not just surviving. These last couple weeks in my own family with my kiddos and my husband and I, we've been dealing with some stuff with one of my kiddos that she's just been really struggling with mental health. And it has been very hard. We have walked through some pretty extreme stuff these last couple weeks. Very scary moments. Very hard. Now, in those moments, I could just shut down and say, I just don't want to do anything. I don't want to go out and do what I need to do. I just want to just survive it. But instead, I've all the stuff that I've learned over these last few years, especially, I'm learning to be intentional in it. And I'm learning to say, God, show me what you want, how you want to help me grow, how you want to help my daughter grow, how you want to help our family grow. And I'm taking this time, and instead of letting it be an opportunity where the Satan says, I want you to just survive, to I want to be intentional in it. That's the power of growth, you guys, is when you then come into, because here's the thing, the situations are still going to happen. The hard times are still going to happen. In fact, it says that in scripture that you will face trials and tribulations. It is not going to get easier. So please do not think that all of a sudden, like when you have Jesus in your life, like it's going to be amazing. It's going to be a bed of roses. That is not true. In fact, it's going to be harder. But what an awesome thing. Why? I think there's a few things. One, you get to see God work firsthand. You get to actually see him literally, like when you're in those trials and when you're in those hard times, it's like you get the front row seat to him working and shifting. It is the coolest thing. I don't want to be anywhere else. I want to see him literally moving in a situation that never, it just feels like it's impossible to ever come out in a positive way. And God says, just trust me. Now let me move this piece. Let me move this here. Let me do this. And you get to see it. You're not standing way back here. You are literally front row watching it all play out. It is the coolest thing to have that privilege. That's the beauty of when you go through these trials and tribulations is you get to see God move. And in the process of it, you begin to grow even more. You begin to shift even more. Why? Because we're not just floating through life anymore. We're living a life of intention. So that means that everything that we go through, we're saying, okay, God, what can I learn in this? How can I grow in this? How can I shift in this? How can I really begin to honor you in the process even more? Because I so fully trust you. I'm no longer second guessing. God, do you got this? Do you got this? Do I really trust you? I just trust you. This is the coolest thing. And here's one of the most powerful things for me in this season right now that we've been going through is I keep thinking, God, thank you for bringing this to head at the time in my daughter's life that she can become a healthy and whole person now instead of when she's in her 30s and 40s like I was. God, thank you. Thank you. Do you hear? Thank you. That now again, it doesn't mean it's easy. Like this morning, actually, it wasn't even this morning. It was in the middle of the night. I'm waking up like it's my heart and my stomach and everything is out because of all these different things that we're working through and things just need to be lining up. So it's not like all of a sudden, oh, see, but there's peace in it. There's peace in it because I know that God's in control. So no more survival mode. Getting out of survival mode. The other way that we can get into drifting is repeated compromise. And this, gosh, been there over and over again. It's not dramatic rebellion, it's small compromises. Skipping, praying. Saying, today I'm not going to find anything I'm grateful for. Like I'm very intentional throughout the day to constantly be focusing on what I'm grateful for. And if that's something that does not come naturally for you, I encourage you to work on it. Because the more you do it, it does become easier. I promise you. It's easy. It's not having an attitude of gratitude is not, you're not born with it. So if you want to be like, oh, but Alesha, it comes so naturally for you. No, I worked on it. I put time into it. I had to build it. I had to create this attitude of gratitude. So if it's not natural for you right now, it can be. You have to choose it. But having an attitude of gratitude is one of the most powerful things that you can do in your life. When you can find something to be grateful for, even in the hard times, you will experience massive shifts in your life. So, again, some other small compromises, and this one, skipping workouts. I don't know about you guys if you work out or not. Like, it's so easy. I've been working out for over 7 years. I would like to say a solid 5 days a week, but now it's about four. And then every once in a while it's three. And here's the thing, I share that with you because, like, you would think 7 years into it, I would have it down and it's this routine and I got it. But I could so easily skip it and lose it. That's when the drifting happens in life. Something that has become routine for me, if I'm not intentional in keeping that habit and that pattern going, I could lose it. So it's that subtle compromise that we can do in our life that we go from living with intention. And this is where you always have to be on guard is all of a sudden you could be up here and it's those little compromises. It's the skipping the workouts. It's skipping the prayer, spending time with gratitude. It's avoiding the hard conversations. Anybody want that? Anybody do that? Like when we're in it and all of a sudden, like, I don't want to have these hard conversations. No, those little things begin to eat away at your living a life of purpose. And I'll tell you, I've gotten better at those hard conversations, but then sometimes I naturally want to avoid them because it's not easy. It's not fun. And that's when I can begin to see, ooh, Alesha, check it. Hold on. Be aware of that. Over time, avoidance becomes your identity. It's easier to just avoid. It's easier to just not even think about it. Goes back to what we talked about with our emotional avoidance, right? It's easier to just avoid all of that. And that's where the drifting really begins to occur. Over time, you begin to say things like, I'm just not consistent. I'm just not disciplined. I'm not that kind of person. Now you've drifted. You feel disconnected from your former fire. You used to feel clarity and conviction, and now it feels foggy. I'll tell you, some of that could just be gut health. It's a big part of it too, right? But some of it is because the identity drift, because you've gotten away from your purpose. You justify your behaviors that you once corrected. This one really is powerful. You once said, I don't want to be that kind of leader. Now you explain why it's fine. You justify it. Your environment shapes you more than your vision. Instead of leading a life of purpose, you are just reacting to it. How many times do we just react to things? If you want to live a life of purpose, not just react, you have to be proactive. You have to be on the offense. A life of purpose cannot be done from the defense. It can't. You've adopted labels that were never yours. You go from maybe it, and actually this is one I actually had for a long time is I was really good with money and then all of a sudden I'm bad with money. I'm not confident. I'm just not spiritual enough. I'm just not that person. When did those things begin to define you? Because you let your identity shift and you got into the place where you are comfortable or you're surviving and you're no longer living with purpose and intention. This can happen in all areas of our life. It can happen in our business, it can happen in our marriage, it can happen with our family, with our kids. So, how do we stop it? How do we stop that identity drift or that floating through life? It's small, like we've talked about, it's small little steps. Now, there are ways to do big steps. And I think it's things like getting involved in a Bible study or going to an event or even hopping on these. Like those are ways to help accelerate, right? So there are ways to jumpstart things, to create some movement to keep you going. And those are powerful. But in the meantime, it's going to be these small little things that you shift in your life to create that permanent foundation. Revisiting your identity statements. And if this is a powerful thing, you guys, what I encourage you to do is to look at that. And what is an identity statement? It's who are you? So be asking questions like or answering this. I am, what would you put in there? I am not, what do you put into that? And I am becoming. I used to say, I am just barely making it. I am just floating by. I'm not a good mom. In fact, I will tell you what was the one of the hardest things over these last couple of weeks is the thoughts that came up, and I even at a couple times it even slipped and I recognized it, is I said, I'm just a horrible mom. I just failed at it. I'm never going to be good at this. And I begin to slip back into that old identity that I used to think that I'm not a good mom. And it was an eye opener because again, going from, no, everything's good to so quickly, I can allow those statements to come back in and redefine me. And it's going back to, wait a second. No, that's not true. It is not true. God, are there things that I can change? Are there things that I can do better? Help me to notice the little things, but that does not mean that I'm a bad mom. God, just help me, work through me. Who are you? The other thing that's powerful is, where are you getting your influence from? Doing like a influence audit. Where is it the loudest? Is it from social media? And for all of us on here, obviously we spend some time on social media. Now, I would say it's so funny because a lot of people think I spend hours and hours on all of my, and I don't. I spend actually very little. I post my stuff and I go and I comment on people. I don't spend tons of time on social media. But even in that little bit of time, it can really influence you. What does your algorithm look like? What are the things that are populating into your newsfeed? And I will tell you, if it's all negative or woe is me or victim or what any of those kind of things, it's because you're searching it and the algorithm you've created has put that in front of you. And that's influencing you. And I will say that because like my husband and I on just it doesn't even have to be on negative, but him and I will talk about like when there's crazy political things going on or whatever, because him and I have some differing views. And he'll talk about, yeah, are you seeing all this stuff going on? I'm like, no, I'm not seeing any of that on my feed. So please know that what you're seeing on a regular basis on your feed is an algorithm that was created by the things that you are seeking out. You're seeing a lot of negative. You're seeing a lot of woe is me because you paused on one of those, and then Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram went, ooh, they connected with that. I'm going to post some more of that. Have you ever noticed that? Like when you pause, when you watch a video, all of a sudden you see a lot more of it. So just do an audit on that. Think about it. When you go through, what are you seeing? Who are the people around you? Are they pouring into you or are they tearing you down? Are they encouraging you and building you up? Or are they telling you the lies that you've been listening to your whole life? What thoughts are you letting control your actions? Are you sitting in the negative thoughts that come to mind? And are you saying, yep, that's true. I'm just always a mistake. I can never do anything. I'm always a failure. When I was in my deepest, darkest depression state, when I was very much suicidal ideation and all that stuff, one of the biggest key things in that, you guys, is because I stayed in those thoughts. I still have those thoughts come up. Now, are they as frequent? No, but I still have them pop up. But here's the key. Do I stay on those thoughts or do I say no, thank you? Or like Tina always says, delete. That's what you get to control. Do you stay in those negative thoughts? Do you stay with the idea of, I will never change. Nothing's ever going to change. I am just a failure. Did it again. Another mistake. There you go. Just confirmation that I'm not awesome, that I'm a mistake. How long do you stay in those thoughts? I'll tell you, when I was in my darkest spot, I lived in those thoughts. I lived in those thoughts. You get to choose. Nobody's making you stay in those thoughts or not. And you have to learn and you have to choose to create a habit and a pattern to stop staying in those thoughts. Drift happens when vision fades. When you begin to not realize that you were created for a purpose, when you begin to think, what is the purpose of being here? When you're no longer focused on that, when you begin to take your eyes off of that and the vision fades, that's where the drifting can so easily occur. So, how do you shift that? You can do it with morning declarations, with things like, God, thank you for today. Today is going to be amazing. Man, I love the sunshine. Gosh, I love the rain or I love the snow. Even if you don't feel it, right? Like it's just that simple little shift of, it doesn't matter. You know what? Sometimes I don't like snow, but right now I wouldn't mind the snow. We've hardly had any. But you can choose to shift it. Speak it out loud. When I was at the house, my old house this morning, I'm walking around, it's so powerful because I'm just speaking it out loud. I'm sure if anybody, even at home, if anybody sees me, they'll probably think, oh gosh, is she crazy? And I'm like, yes, I am. I'm crazy because I love Jesus and I love to talk out loud. I tell you, it's like I have full conversations with God. That's what we're supposed to be doing, just so you know. That's part of having an intimate relationship with Jesus is having conversations with him. And so I talk it out loud. I speak my identity out loud. I speak my attitude of gratitude out loud. And then writing it down is just as powerful. So let me end with this. Drifting is natural. It's going to happen. But you have a choice of how long do you stay in it. You can create a life that actually helps you to be aware of it a lot sooner. You do not have to get to where now if you are just in an inner tube on the, like I had mentioned earlier with a boat, where you've now floated and now you are miles from the beach. You don't have to live that way. You can actually begin to be aware right away. Just like for me this week, these last couple weeks, when those thoughts wanted to come in about, oh, I'm just a horrible mom or whatever, I very quickly addressed them because that could have been such an easy spiraling thing for me that would have just started me down the path of, gosh, I never make things right. Oh, I did it again. I'm just a failure. And I just keep going. And it's slow. And it just happens. So creating that awareness, growth is intentional. The enemy doesn't want you to fall dramatically. He just needs you to drift quietly. And I think of this, you guys, with the floating through life. Yes, he does want to kill, steal, and destroy. Like that's his ultimate goal. But I believe for most of us, let's say 90% of people, what he likes to do is just keep you floating through life. Because you're not living in this is such a horrible life. I need to switch. It's so miserable and so horrible. Because then that can spur on action to change and shift. So he's just going to keep you just right in the middle, just right there, just enough to just tease you a little bit. Like, oh, see, it's not too bad. And he's just going to keep you drifting and floating. Because if you begin to realize that there can be massive shifts and you don't have to live there anymore, that's where the real power happens. That's where God begins to make some massive moves. But Satan doesn't want you there. You don't lose your identity overnight. You lose it in one unchallenged thought at a time. Where have you drifted? And who are you becoming? Ask those questions of yourself even today. Who are you now? And who do you want to be again? You don't have to drift. We can decide. And I encourage you guys to decide today and tomorrow and the next day and the day after. And you know what? You might decide it this morning, and then you might have to decide it again this afternoon. And then you might have to decide it again before you go to bed. And then you might have to decide it again when you first wake up in the morning. And you might have to decide it over and over again. But it is worth it because we were not meant to just float through life. We're not meant to just drift. We are meant to live with intention. We are meant to live with purpose. So next week, we're going to focus on comfortable mediocrity. That's what it's like to be comfortable. And God says, let's grow. So I appreciate you guys hopping on this week as we are growing, as we are no longer just floating through life, but we're living with intention. And I hope this impacted you guys. I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to be on here. I know that for a lot of you, it's a sacrifice to commit to even an hour of time. That's a lot. I don't take that lightly. And so I appreciate you guys so much. And just, yeah, let's wrap this up with prayer. God, thank you. Thank you for what you are doing in each one of our lives, that you are challenging us, that you are encouraging us, that you are comforting us, and you are pushing us out of the nest. And you are giving us the opportunity to soar with the purpose that you've always had in mind for us, for what, even at the beginning of time, when you decided to make each one of us, you went, and this is your purpose. God, push us out of the nest that we may soar and give you the glory in it. God, thank you so much for everybody that has issues going on in their life. They're walking through some really hard moments. They're walking through things that just seem so heavy. God, I ask that you give them your peace today, that they feel you in a way that they never knew was possible, that they know to the core of their being that you are there, that you love them and you treasure them. And that's all that matters. Everything else is put to the wayside because we just get to rest in you. And that's where our identity lies. Thank you, Jesus. Okay, love you all. We will see you all next week. Thanks, you guys. See ya.